So it has been a quite hard session before the break, I think. From now on, it will be easy peasy. It's just UI bits. It's everybody will understand it. So you will also have time to think about questions for the session afterwards when we talk about the roadmap and things like that. So I might invite Joram to hold my mic at some point, but let's see.
That's why I was here at the back.
Yeah, but you can come to the front still. So one of the changes we made in the Activity 6 UI is, so we had this Vaden Explorer for quite some time. Before that we had a Spring Serve web script solution. Is there anybody in the room who used that Spring Serve tool? Joram, you should raise your arm now. Oh yeah, oh you shouted at it only, yeah. So we moved that to Vaden 6, I think 4 years ago or something like that. And we made quite a couple of changes. There's quite a bit of functionality in there to show off the Activity API. But I think the time has come to create a new UI and make it a bit more fresh. Get rid of Java, and it's a JavaScript world nowadays, so let's just go ahead with that. So why we badly needed this new UI? So we have released some versions of Activity Enterprise, our commercial offering, where we introduced a couple of new things. So we have introduced the application concept, which I will talk about a little bit later. We implemented a new drag and drop form builder. So you now can create a form with a nice UI instead of doing some stupid form property definition in the process modeler or in XML. So we think Vaden 6 is not really up to date anymore. It doesn't even run on IE 11, I think. Not that I want to say that Internet Explorer 11 is such an important browser, but I think we should support it. And basically the current UI sucks from a design standpoint of view. It's a bit old-fashioned. Looks a bit like the Apple website from 1997. So what we did in this new UI is we created the separation between the design piece and the runtime piece, just like we did with the old Explorer application. So we now have an app definition, a process definition, and a form definition, which you can combine in all kinds of ways. There's a task and form UI, so in addition to the new form builder with a lot of additional widgets and controls, we also need a renderer that actually renders these new controls, of course. So in the Explorer we had only 4 types, I think. Now we have a couple more. So that's in this new UI. We have a simple identity management solution. So we also had that in the Vaden-based UI, but it's a bit more advanced now, a bit nicer UI, but also the database storage is a bit more. There are a bit more options, so that's done as well. There's a process state diagram which we improved and enhanced and basically rewritten when you compare it to the Vaden process state diagram. It's an AngularJS application, and on the back end we use Spring MVC for the REST layer, and of course the activity engine to run it on. And actually as a persistent layer we now use Hibernate just for the simple identity entities and model entities and things like that. So the pieces we have now in this new UI, so we still have the VPN editor. Not much has changed there. That was already an AngularJS application also in the latest activity release in 5.17. So that's just there. We only added a couple more options. So with this new form builder, we needed some integration with that, of course, to navigate from a user task to this new form builder. And we added some more properties like some more possibilities for assignment and things like that. So that's in there. Then there's this new form editor. So this is a screenshot of it. As you can see on the left-hand side, those are the elements you can create a form with. So all the basic ones like text, number, date, I think drop down. We also had in the previous version, but we added a couple more. So like an upload field where you can upload a file and it gets attached to the task and to the process. You can have a people picker that goes against this simple identity store. Also a group picker where you can select a group of persons. And those can be used for assignment. So you can, for example, say, I have this person field on the start form, and the first task gets assigned to this person that gets selected in this person field. So that could be one of the use cases there. So also checkbox options, radio buttons. So you basically just drag and drop from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, and a nice form gets presented. So a drag and drop form editor, and what you can do, you can configure. Yeah. Yeah. So the form editor, we basically ripped that from the enterprise application. So we just are making it open source now. We removed a couple of the field types we have in enterprise, but all the JSON definitions are just the same. So, for example, in enterprise we have an upload field where you can have direct integration with Alfresco. Yeah, we consider that an enterprise feature, so that's not there in the open source version. But basically, every field type is also there in the open source version. Sorry? So it's the same code base, and we will share code between the two. But the open source one is a separate GitHub repository from the enterprise one. But yeah, there will be a lot of code sharing between. And you can import an open source form, you can import it in enterprise as well, so that's possible. So you mean the BPMN process or the step editor? So that's not community based right now. It's an enterprise feature. Yeah. So we open source the BPMN editor and the form editor. Yeah. So what you can configure for each field type is, of course, the label, the identifier, and the identifier gets translated into the variable name. So that's what you can use in expressions and things like that. You can say if it's required or not, and for a text field you can define a placeholder, for example. For a drop-down you can define the options you want to show in the drop-down, of course, just the basic stuff. And what we also added is you can define the outcomes, as we call it. So by default you always have to have this complete button, but sometimes you don't want to have this complete button, or you want to label it differently, or you want to have multiple outcomes. So that's something you can define in the form editor. If you want to have, if you don't define any outcome, it will render as a complete button. If you if you want to change that, then you can override it with your own outcomes. So in the app editor, so this is a new concept. I think it's quite easy. So the app definition is basically a grouping of process definitions, and just a way to say I have, for example, an HR app, and I have 4 process definitions related to HR. I can group them together in one app definition. You can also say I have an app with only one process definition, of course. Doesn't really matter. but this is also a way to export the artifact, so the process model including all forms. You can export it from the app concept. And you can also import it again, of course. So it's also a way of providing a means of exporting your group of functionality of process definitions and being able to import it again into another environment, for example. And what you can define for an app is you can choose an icon and you can choose a theme color. And that gets shown when you log in the new UI. You get an overview of apps, and there are a couple of apps that are default. So we have the Kickstarter app, which basically is all the editor functionality. So you will find the process editor there, form editor and app editor. Then we have a generic task application, and that's a combined view of all the apps that are deployed for you. So if you don't want to, if you for example have 6 specific apps, you can also go to the task application and you get a full overview of all the tasks that are assigned to you, but also all the processes where you are involved basically. So it's basically a combined view of all process definitions where you are interested in because you deployed it. Then we have the profile app, and that's to change your profile, but also to add users, groups, so more identity management pieces, if you have admin rights. So we have a really simple distinguishing between normal users and admins, and only admins can add users and groups. Normal users can only change their profile, so basically their password and name they can change. And then there's a dynamic piece where you can add apps you created or that people shared with you. You can add them to this dashboard as well. So there's only the test app right now, but there's a plus sign here where you can deploy new apps that are available for you. So those can be created by yourself or can be created by somebody else that shared it with you. So when you created an app and selected the process models you want to include in this app definition, you can choose to publish the app, and what will happen is then the BPMN XML will get generated. So all the artifacts will be deployed to the activity engine, and the form definitions will be deployed to the engine as well. So that's basically from moving from the editor to the runtime piece of activity. Also, every model gets automatically versioned when you publish an app. So every process model, every form definition is increased in version. So you always know this specific version has been placed into the runtime bit. So now you have deployed the application, and you can go into this app we just saw, or to the task application. And in this example, we have a process that has a start form, and this application will render this start form just like it was built in the form builder, basically. So we have a simple form with a text field, date, etc. And there is required validation checking. So if, for example, the name field is required, it's red by default, you have to fill it in, and only then the task can be completed with one of the outcome buttons. So when you started the process and the process is running, there are some tasks created. There's always the possibility to go back to the form that has been completed. So there can be a start form and a task form. We now have a separate table where we store every form data that gets submitted. So you can always view which start form data was used to start this process instance, or which task form data was used. So there's always a trace back to see what's been filled in. So for example, if name would have been reused across different forms in the process instance, and you would override the value in the third task, for example, you would still see the original value in the start form and then the new value in the third task. So that's being available as an order tree. Yeah, so now let's do it in action. And Joram, can you please come forward?
Nobody will see you if I sit before you. It's really hot here compared to there. Test.
Yeah. So this is the login page of the example of the new UI. So we have some example users here. So this shows the landing page UI. So we have these three standard apps, and additionally I already created some test application. So if I go to profile, so I have admin rights as this user. So in addition to my personal information, I can also change the users, and I can change some groups in this database. So a simple identity management piece. Then we have the task application. So that's a combination of everything that's being created here for my user. So I can now, for example, create an ad hoc task like hello task, create it. And now a task is available for me. I can set a due date, for example. I can add some files to this task. I can add comments. Let's do that. So hello, I can add some additional people. So if I add this person also gets this task in his task list. So this is a way to involve people in the same task context. You can share files, things like that, and eventually you can complete the task. You can also change the SNE if that's necessary. So if I complete it, then it's gone from my task list, but I can still have a view on all the tasks that have been created. So you can show all the completed tasks, you can filter on them, on specific process definition, do some assignment rules, things like that. So that's the basic runtime UI. So now the editor, the Kickstart application. So like I said, there are three entities, base entities. So there's the process entity, the form entity, and the app entity. And the first step would be to create a process. So let's do that. So actually yesterday, our good friend Ivo wanted to go to grab an Apple Watch here in France, because in the Netherlands we can't get an Apple Watch. Apple ignores us. Yeah, we are a small country, of course. So.
I know, I
So we went over to some luxury store with a lot of Chinese people, and they were buying a lot of stuff. I think the salespeople were really happy there. And they, yeah, so they also had an Apple Watch. So in addition to the Louis Vuitton suitcase, bags and things like that, and rings of 68,000 euros and nice watches, they also had an Apple Watch stand. But we looked at it, and they only had the gold edition. So, well, it's a bit out of reach for us. So, but then we went to the other side of the wall, and they also had the sport one. So Ivo was quite happy actually. We didn't care.
No, because they were sold out.
Yeah. No, but we also didn't care actually. No.
No. I don't see a use case for an Apple Watch. If anybody knows a use case for an Apple Watch, come tell me, please. Yeah, send emojis to your friends. Yeah.
So he was able to try it on, but then eventually they told him we have no 42-inch ones left, so we left sad. So now we are going to create a very simple Apple order, Apple Watch process. Just because, yeah, we have to do something. The stupid vacation request process is quite boring. Actually, I actually wanted to do a vacation request process, but yeah, some people didn't. So order Apple Watch, and from here now I can say there's a new attribute here, reference form, and I can select a form if it's already present in this context, but I can also create a new form. So let's say order Apple Watch, create a form. So now we navigate to the form editor, and I can start dragging some stuff out of it. So let me think.
If only you would have practiced this more yesterday evening.
That would have been nice actually, yeah. So we have to choose the country where we order it from. So the Netherlands, US, UK, France of course, and Belgium we skip. So we can also define the label, so let's set it to country. So in addition to that, we also have to define which Apple Watch edition we want to buy. So, Watch edition. So, let's call this, so Sport. And the stupid thing is that there's also a watch edition that's called the Watch edition, so I don't know how to call it, well, Watch edition. And
what's the difference between Sport and Watch edition? I'm not well versed in Apple Watch's technology.
nobody cares.
Even what's the difference?
You don't have to sport if you have the...
You don't have to Sport if you have that watch. Yeah.
So we also have the Gold edition. Let's also fill in, please select one. To look at this name, Watch edition. We also have to choose the amount, so number field, amount, and we also have to specify our name. Let's make that required. So that's fine, save it. So that's now reference to this user task. Now let's just add a simple exclusive gateway here. And now I can say I want to go in this direction in case the country was the Netherlands. And then we have to say you can't order it yet. So it stops there. So this is the Gold edition one. So in case you only buy one Gold edition, so Watch edition is Gold edition, and the amount is 1. Then let's create a new form, Gold form. And let's just add an outcome here, that if you only buy one Gold edition, then you have to buy more. You can't buy one, you have to buy more of those. Buy more. So that's enough. So if that's all not the case, then our default one is to organize tryout session. Now just make it nice and clean. Have a join exclusive gateway, although it's not really necessary. Yeah. So that's all done. Now it's also important to set the order of the sequence flows, because if we don't set it, then Activiti will take what it's liking most. So and we really want to say you first have to try out the first expression, then the second, and only if those fail, then you have to take the default one. So can't order it yet is the first one, then that was actually okay. So then the gold edition one, and then organized tryout session. And the organized tryout session is the default flow. We don't set a condition on it. So that's all there. And now we can create an app definition. Apple Watch 2. Make it a nice red one. And now there's a time. Yeah. Okay. So now I have this app definition defined. My process definition is attached to this app definition, and I can save it. And I can also say immediately I want to publish it to make it available on the Activiti engine. So if I don't publish it, it will be only available in the editor component. So publish it as well. And go back here, and now you can see that I can add this new app to my landing page. And in addition to that, you can also share this app with other people. So if I, for example, also have another test user, I can say this user also has the capability to edit this app, so we can add other process definitions, things like that, change the name. Only has read options, and if I share it, then this other user is also able to work with this app. So he also will get this new process definition on this landing page. So I already created an example application yesterday evening at 12. So it's really similar. So I'm starting that now. So there's no start form, and when I start the process, you can see it's now in the state of the order Apple Watch.
Don't trust, no, you can see it on a projector, but you can't see it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, trust us, you can see it on a real screen.
So now I can open up the order Apple Watch task. I can add some comments here, involve people, just like I did with the ad hoc task, and I can fill in the form as well, of course. So let's go for the Apple Watch edition, take 1, and choose the Netherlands, and just leave this. So now I can go back to the process instance, and you can see it progress to the next step. And because I chose the Netherlands, it will go to the can't order yet user task. That user task didn't have any form attached to it, so you will only get a complete button to complete this task. You can still add comments, involve people, add files to it, but there's no form. So let's go back to this process instance once again. Here you can see my completed task, and if I click on that, you can see which information I filled in.
And it looks better on a real screen because the colors are not showing at all on the projector.
Yeah.
My arms are getting really tired, Tijs.
We are almost ready. Yeah, actually we are ready. So you always get an overview of all the tasks that have been completed. You can see what form information has been filled in. You can show the active state. Just like with tasks, you can filter on the state of the process, so we can also look at completed process instances, or we can view all running and completed together. There's also a possibility to cancel the process, just basically delete it. yeah, that's what's there in this application, in this prototype, yeah. So let's go back to the presentation. So just a couple of slides to wrap up. So for the database model, we had to create some additional tables to store the models, to store some relationships between the process model and the form model, yeah, just some additional tables. And we chose to use Hibernate as a persistence layer for that, and Liquibase to version these additional tables. So we now have a separation between the pure engine tables, so those are not touched, so it's just the same. But all the new tables are, so basically the application-specific tables are Hibernate managed and managed by a Liquibase database script to have to work with database changes and things like that. And that database model is compatible with Activiti Enterprise, so if you would like to upgrade at some point from open source to enterprise, that's a no-brainer. That's yeah, that's really easy. Actually, I didn't say the demo I just gave ran on Activiti 6, so it's running on our Activiti 6 yeah, latest code base, and as you can see, it just works. So the layering of the application, it's AngularJS frontend, Spring MVC for the REST layer, Hibernate JPA for persistence, Spring security, and Liquibase for the data model versioning. So quite a common application stack, I think. So that's what's there. So the next steps. So what we have been showing today is the prototype. We need to get it on GitHub, so it's not there yet. We didn't create a branch for it yet. We still need to do a little bit of cleaning, but yeah, it's looking quite okay. So I expect it to be available very soon. So and then we will do a beta version together with this new UI and the new engine. So that will be available shortly. And with that, we will also, of course, update the user guide with all the new stuff in Activiti 6 and the new UI and things like that. So quite a bit of work to do. And it would be really cool if you could try out those beta builds and provide some feedback to us, because this is just at the starting point. We open sourced some components from the enterprise application, but it's not that it's a drop-off or something like that. We really want to invest time in it to make it, to add more functionality to it, to make it a really convenient application. So yeah, any feedback is welcome, any pull request is welcome. So yeah, we really want to make this the new Explorer application, basically. So the new example application for Activiti open source. So, any questions? Tim?
You mentioned that they are linked for next or there for the app.
Yeah.
Is there an API for that too?
Yeah. So the question is about the app import and export. So there's a way to access it from the UI, but also there's also a REST API to do the same. So from the application, we actually also use the same REST API. Yeah, so you can also use it directly with REST client. Yeah.
Are the forms stored the same way the process are stored? With the XML file?
So the process from the BPMN editor is stored as JSON by default, and then we translate it to BPMN XML. The form is stored as also as JSON, but we also render it from this JSON. So the way it's stored is also the way it's rendered. But it's all JSON, very simple format. Yeah. Yeah.
Is the Eclipse editor, or what was the name, is dead? Or
Good question. So the Eclipse editor, so we actually did quite a bit of work on it in this year, but we didn't make a proper release out of it. So if you look at the GitHub repository, there really are quite a bit of changes there. But yeah, we didn't do a release yet, so it's definitely not that, and it's still something we would like to keep on par with the web-based modeler. But yeah, it's just a matter of focus and the amount of resources we had. Yeah, that we didn't spend as much time on it as we should have in the past. But we really plan to make a nice proper release soon as well. So there was somebody asking about release of the 5 version. So we actually already wanted to release a 5.18 a month ago. But we have been focused on Activity 6. But we will release an Activity 5.18 quite soon, and not long after we should also create a new version of the Eclipse editor. Yeah.
For the web editor, you providing kind of hooks to customize the palettes, so you put our own custom components on the palettes, or?
Yeah. So in the enterprise version, there's an editor to customize the palette of the process, and actually also for the form in the future. So that's there, but in the open source version it's also possible, but then you would have to change the stencil.set.json file. So that would be the way to customize the open source version for now. Yeah. Yep.
So you said the form is saved as JSON, so there is a feature difference between what is expressible as a form in the BPMN and what is expressible as form in the web.
Yeah, so the question is, we store the form as JSON, and there's a difference with the spec, you mean, or what?
No, you have the form properties. Like
Okay, so is there a difference with there's a difference with the form properties we have in Activity 5 basically, or still in Activity 6 as well actually, and what we do now in this form builder. So this new JSON approach is basically an addition to the form properties possibility. So that there is still the possibility to define form properties with the 4 types you can use there. Just like it was always possible. And this is just an additional thing we added. So both will be available.
Okay.
In form properties, we can display some evaluated expression from the context.
Yeah.
In the form editor, is it possible to do that?
Yeah, so that was one of the pieces we found out also late last night, that we ripped a bit too much from when we moved from the enterprise version to the open source version. So there will be a display text field where you can just fill in expressions, just like you can do with form properties, and that display text just gets rendered in the form.
So it's possible to set a field as readable.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Is it possible to have multiple questions?
Okay. Only one.
Okay, I will ask
No.
later.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question about our concerns. We are looking now how to implement monitoring or debugger tool for our processes.
Yeah.
So I see in your presentation that you have kind of a process state diagrams which give some insights.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether some foreseen way to enrich this information with some custom data, or can we embed some customization, or is it somehow an approach to build on top of that activity or some custom tool?
Yeah, so the question is about the process diagram that we just showed in the demo. So that's a JavaScript-based renderer. It uses Raphael as a renderer. So it reads, so we have a REST service that reads the BPMN model and then sends back that information to the Raphael.js piece or component, and that renders the picture out of it. And what we can do, what we do now is with some types like user task and service task, we send additional information. Like with the service task, we show which class is configured on the service task, or in the user task, we show which SNG has been set on that user task. So that extensibility thing is already built in. Yeah, and it's a JavaScript component, so you can definitely include it in your own application very easily. And it's also quite easy to customize, I think. So yeah.
I mean, if there is something like a service task, and it has a counterpart in some external application, we also can enrich the data with.
So what we do is when you hover over this user task of a service task, we show a pop-up box, or pop-over box, and you can add any information you would like in there. And you could also implement your own behavior, of course, if you don't like this pop-over behavior, but you want to show this information somewhere else. That's also possible, of course, but that's how we do it by default. Yeah.
Any technical dependencies in terms of Java version or Spring version? Anything that changes on Activity 6?
No, so that we don't have a specific Java upgrade in mind or a specific Spring upgrade in mind. What we try to do with our own applications is to keep up a bit with the new releases, but we ensure that everything is backwards compatible with all the versions as well. And we actually still support Java 6, which we maybe shouldn't. And we don't have any specific plans to remove that compatibility now. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so so for the BPMN editor you mean, right?
Sorry?
For the BPMN editor you mean, or?
No, for the forms and that's where these listeners on form renders, form field render.
Ah, you mean the JavaScript hook points?
Yeah.
You should look at the person behind you and maybe ask him. The big 6 on his t-shirt. You can ask him if he would like to make it available. I'm in favor, so. No. Yeah.
UI forms are referenced from process model by reference or by value. Because when I deploy new form, this old process definition can use this new form definition or this old one.
Yeah. So the question is how we technically link the user task to the specific form, and we use the form key in the application. That's generated by default. So because we version the forms. When you deploy a new version, that form key, or task form key, will also get a different value because it will have it will refer a different version of the form. But technically, if you would like to override that behavior, that's absolutely possible. So you can do. Yeah, it's just a task form key value. So yeah.
If you deploy the BPMN XML not inside your Activity Explorer, but somewhere else in the application, is it also available in that Explorer, or is it only within the upper context?
Yeah. So we have a possibility to import a BPMN XML into the process repository in this Kickstart application. So that could be a way to use it in the default way. If you just want to deploy a BPMN XML directly onto the Activity engine, that will just be possible, of course, but we don't show it in the task application right now. I think that's restricted to the app definition process definitions right now, but that's something we can change if that's something that more people want, and that it should show all process definitions on the engine basically. But by default it's restricted to the ones that are deployed with the add definition. So I think it's time to move on to the roadmap session. Oh, I can continue. Okay. So maybe Joram would like to. Oh no, he's just sitting there.
I'm really comfortable here.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the roadmap thing, we just want to open it up for everybody to add comments, share some ideas, raise some concerns, things like that. We don't have a specific agenda for it. If there are not much people wanting to share something up front, then we can also go back to the slides that we skipped when the Activity Engine 6 presentation was completed. But is there anybody that would like to kick off our roadmap talk?
It's really hot here.
Yeah.
There it's fine, but here it's hot.
Yeah. So anything related to Activity 5, Activity 6? Yeah.
For those of us using Alfresco 1, any idea on when we're going to get all this lovely stuff?
In the next Alfresco release.
So we for the Activity Enterprise version, we already have a share connector available. So that's available now. Looking at the open source version, just the out of the box workflow engine inside of Fresco 1, that will be increased with the next version. I think so that we are not aware of any specific plans to do something special there, but it will just be migrated to the latest version in the next release, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Are there already any time plans when this version 6 will come out, or like in 6